American Christian heritage has its roots in the Great Awakening movements of the 17th and 18th centuries. Led by the celebrated evangelicals George Whitefield and Samuel Davies, the movement stressed a message based on God's forgiveness for sinners, the greatness and glory of God, and the ethereal beauty of the life of the holiness. Evangelicals continued to preach this message throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. Billy Graham is one of the most well-known yet controversial evangelical ministers who continued this message during the 20th century. By the time he retired in 2005, Graham had preached to more than 215 million people in person in more than 185 countries and territories. Further, he preached to millions through electronic media. In the 1970s, he was said to be as well known as the Pope. Graham's message reached hundreds of millions of individuals throughout the globe, making him one of the most celebrated evangelicals of all time. This video will discuss Graham's early life, his message, and his ability to reach millions worldwide. I am here with Laura Broderick, an expert on Billy Graham. Thank you for being here today with us, Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
Could you tell us a little bit about Billy Graham's early life, please?
Certainly, Laura. Billy Graham was born into an ordinary Presbyterian farming family on November 7, 1918. Billy Frank, as his family and friends called him, grew up on the family dairy farm. He was reared in the typical Southern culture of Charlotte, North Carolina. In September 1934, he came to faith in Christ in an evangelistic crusade under the preaching of evangelist Mordecai Fowler Hom. Billy was 16 at the time and experienced a truly transforming conversion. When Billy Graham finished high school, he went for a short time to Bob Jones College in Cleveland, Tennessee. However, he soon left Bob Jones and enrolled in a Florida Bible College Institute at Temple Terrace, a suburb of Tampa. One night, while at the Bible Institute, Billy surrendered himself to God's will to preach his gospel and follow the Lord Jesus Christ to wherever he may lead. Billy finished his studies at the Bible Institute in Tampa and moved to Wheaton College, west of Chicago, Illinois. There he received his Bachelor of Arts degree in anthropology and also met his future wife, Ruth, a medical missionary's daughter. After college, Billy became pastor of a small Baptist church in Western Springs, Illinois. He soon threw himself into the evangelistic rally ministry of Youth for Christ International. He began to travel extensively in America and started broadcasting Songs in the Night, a religious radio program that was met with great success. In the mid-1940s, he traveled to England, which began his love of itinerant evangelism overseas. As his involvement with Youth for Christ developed further, he became more convinced that he should leave the West Springs Church and devote himself entirely to itinerant evangelism. However, he had great internal struggles on what path he should take. Finally, in September of 1949, he made his way to Los Angeles with the Christ for Greater Los Angeles campaign. The Los Angeles Crusade in 1949 launched Mr. Graham into international prominence. Scheduled for 3 weeks, the meetings were extended to more than 8 weeks, with overflow crowds filling a tent erected downtown each night. Many of his subsequent early crusades were similarly extended, including one in London that lasted 12 weeks, and a New York crusade in Madison Square Garden in 1957 that ran nightly for 16 weeks.
Thank you for that excellent introduction on Billy Graham's early life, Laura. Could you tell us more about Graham's other early accomplishments?
Of course. In 1945, Billy Graham became the field representative for the Youth for Christ movement. In this role, he toured the United States, Great Britain, and Europe, teaching local youth leaders how to organize youth rallies. In 1950, he began his Hour of Decision radio program that extended his influence. He held stunningly successful months-long revivals in London in 1954 and New York in 1957, where he invited Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to lead his congregation in prayer. Through this, Graham showed he would support African Americans in their quest for equal rights. Graham greatly struggled with the civil rights situation in the United States. In a 1986 interview with Parade magazine, Billy Graham was asked if, when looking back over his life at age 68, there was anything he would have done differently. He answered, "I wish I had gotten more education. If I could have, I would have gotten a PhD in anthropology to understand the race situation in this country better." Graham has often mentioned this education as a key to expanding his views on a variety of social issues. In particular, Graham has pointed to his anthropological training as influencing his views of race, leading first to his vocal, if initially inconsistent, opposition to legal segregation. followed by his decision in 1953 to defy the pressures from Southerners to practice racial segregation in his famous crusades. Eventually, he would declare racism to be one of the greatest social problems of the 20th century. In 1956, Graham toured Asia and founded Christian Today magazine. He also launched nationwide television broadcasts on ABC in 1957. There were two specific events that helped evangelicals see themselves as a major worldwide force. In 1966, at the World Congress on Evangelism in Berlin, 1,200 evangelical leaders from 104 nations attended. And at the 1974 International Congress on World Evangelization in Switzerland, attended by 2,400 delegates from 150 countries. These two events display the power of Graham's message to evangelicals worldwide. Graham was also successful in penetrating the Iron Curtain, and starting in 1978, nearly every Soviet-controlled country gave him speaking privileges. Graham used these visits to preach, to encourage Christian believers, and to explain to communist leaders that their restriction of religious freedom was counterproductive, hampering diplomatic relations with America.
Thank you, Laura. Could you tell us now about how Billy Graham viewed politics?
Certainly. As Graham's prestige and influence grew, particularly among non-evangelical Christians, he drew criticism from fundamentalists who felt his cooperation with churches affiliated with the National and World Council of Churches signaled a compromise with the corrupting forces of modernism. The enduring break with hardline fundamentalism came in 1957, when after accepting an invitation from the Protestant Council of New York to hold a crusade in Madison Square Garden, Graham announced, "I intend to go anywhere, sponsored by anybody, to preach the gospel of Christ if there are no strings attached to my message. The one badge of Christian discipleship is not orthodoxy but love. Christians are not limited to any church. The question is, are you committed to Christ?" However, also during this time, Graham began his close relationship with the nation's presidents. In 1950, he prayed with President Truman. He was public friends of President Dwight D. Eisenhower, who stated, "Billy Graham is one of the best ambassadors our country has had, but he told me I am an ambassador of heaven." He spent time and prayed with JFK and LBJ, whom he was also public friends with. President Nixon was also friends with Graham, who established him as the acknowledged standard bearer for evangelical Christianity. However, in the last year of Nixon's presidency, Graham did not get to see him. Someone at the White House later relayed that Nixon said, "Don't let Billy Graham near me. I don't want him tarred with Watergate." Graham has met and prayed with every president since Nixon. In his 1999 campaign autobiography, A Charge to Keep, George W. Bush said a turning point in his faith came during a private talk with Billy Graham along the coast of Maine in 1985. Graham's words planted the mustard seeds in my soul that eventually led to a decision to recommit my heart to Jesus Christ, he wrote. Billy Graham has been an important figure in the White House for many years, yet when the movement known as the religious right surfaced in the late 1970s, he declined to participate in it, warning fellow Christian leaders to be wary of exercising political influence, lest they lose their spiritual impact.
Thank you, Laura. Now could you tell us about the Billy Graham Evangelical Association?
Certainly. The Billy Graham Evangelical Association was founded in 1950 by Billy Graham to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. The association illustrates the message of Billy Graham, and the statement of faith reads, Through the Billy Graham Evangelical Association, he began the weekly Hour of Decision radio program, which was heard around the world for more than 60 years. Television programs that are still broadcast today on national Christian networks, a syndicated newspaper column, My Answer, which is carried by newspapers both nationally and internationally, and Decision Magazine, the official publication of the association, which has a circulation of more than 425,000, making it one of the most widely circulated religious periodicals in the world. Mr. Graham has written 33 books, many of which have become top sellers. His latest autobiography, Just As I Am, was published in 1997 with subsequent revisions.
Thank you, Laura. It is quite evident Billy Graham is extremely significant to the study of American Christian heritage because he continued the message that began the Great Awakening movement. Graham evangelized millions of individuals worldwide and continued televangelism to preach to those who could not hear his sermons in person. He is one of the most well-known figures of the 20th century. Graham is a constant fixture on the lists of the 10 most admirable people in the United States or in the world. He received both the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1983 and the Congressional Gold Medal in 1996, the highest medals that these two branches can bestow on an individual. Further, a Ladies' Home Journal survey ranked the famed evangelist second only to God in the category Achievements in Religion. Therefore, Billy Graham is extremely significant to the study of American Christian heritage. In June of 2007, Graham lost his wife, Ruth. Together, they had 3 daughters, 2 sons, 19 grandchildren, and numerous great-grandchildren. Mr. Graham currently resides in their home in the mountains of North Carolina.